Hi, friends. It's Beth here with Aging Care Solutions, offering professional guidance, personal caregiving experience, and lots of experience with friends in my age group, even in their 40s, their 50s, 60s, and beyond, who are making decisions on behalf of their loved ones. And the topic, if it brought you in, this is definitely something that I lived. And it's sort of an imperceptible change that starts to happen. But if you've never heard this phrase, when you become your parent's parent, it for me it captures like a powerful emotional shift. And in my family and in our family, it happened over time. It happened when friends of my parent, my mother, and relatives, my aunt and uncle, calling me and expressing their concern for my mother's memory impairment, worried, that she was changing. My grandmother's assisted living called, said, your mother keeps coming, writing checks. So there was various things. It's windy here and dark and a little bit gray today here in Maryland, but my wind chimes, I hope it's not disturbing you. I'm going to close the door. One moment. Sorry about that. You may have noticed that my living room is empty except for a couple side chairs. I'm selling stuff. I'm really doing okay with the move is underway. Let's put it that way. I've got a couple more months to be here, but moving out of a home that I um, moved into almost a decade ago. Well, 8 years ago, really, but it feels like a decade. So I'm back. And what I wanted to talk to you about is the impact that this could have on you, right? When you hear that phrase, it does evoke powerful emotions. It did for me, really, because I had to manage my own life, my own small children during this transition, and it required a balance, if you will, of responsibilities and trying to serve my own family's needs, which were very high at that time because I had twins and they were just little kids. I mean, I think when I really started considering moving her, they were about two. And she came down, I kidnapped her, so to speak. She couldn't live alone. She could not safely, she should not have been driving. She was living in a home where she was still cooking and doing a lot of things. And it became very clear that she needed way more support. So I was happy to do it, and I knew she needed the help. And but managing your life during this transition, it will require balance. And I just have to say, it's almost a gift that we don't really know what's coming, because had I known, I think I was the right man for the job anyway, because I was in this industry. I had a ton of contacts. I knew about all of the assisted livings in not only my county, but the county north of us that was considerably less each month. So I did have kind of a leg up on what I needed to do for her. But I think it's almost like childbirth. You forget the pain that you went through birthing a life so that you will have another baby. But to me, it was like I had no idea what it was going to entail. And I was definitely becoming my mother's parent. And it stayed that way until she took her last breath. But I'm looking for what I deem practical and almost like a practical guide to help you folks, so that you are able to acknowledge the shift that's going to take place. The reality is that the roles will be shifting, and it can stir up all kinds of emotions. Like, a lot of times we're not prepared, especially if someone calls you and you don't really know what to do in that specific moment. You might feel a little bit of guilt or grief or feel frustration, sometimes all at once, when they call and say, you know what, I'm not able to do this or that. And it starts slowly, but over time, when you think, when your dad was there and the lawn was being taken care of and they were organizing, the snowplow people to come, and just getting the furniture, the outdoor patio set outside from the basement or the garage, like all the things that a team would do together would now be falling on one person who could be in their 70s, could be in their 80s or older. And you really don't know. If you're living at a distance from your parent, you really cannot even tell, because in my case, I knew she was not doing great because people had started calling me, but I had to really up my game and really put a plan of action together after her mom passed just a couple months later. So it was like I knew that I had to, talk to her about it. She did not want to move. She did not think there was anything wrong. But communicating with her, just reassuring, I'm here for you. Everything's going to be taken care of. I'm here to help you. I didn't have to set clear boundaries, but I do believe that setting boundaries if needed, defining, understanding what you can realistically offer from a time perspective, especially if you live out of the area. Like I was 6 hours away. So it wasn't not only that I couldn't offer my time, I just couldn't get there. I could not, I had to leave on a Friday. So at the time, my husband would have to take a Friday off so that I could drive the 6 hours so that I could be there before the end of business day, so we could talk to an attorney, go to her financial planner's office, or see any doctors or specialists. So a lot fell on me to be very organized, and I stayed that way. She had her own cabinet in my file cabinet with all of her monthly statements that were coming in. I sent the power of attorney and advance directive to all of the new doctors that were being established, and her financial team. Everybody kind of knew, that I was going to be making decisions on her behalf. So, but pouring your time, your energy, and sometimes finances into helping assist a parent is something, it's going to start to unfold, and you're not even going to realize, oh my gosh, now is this what my future is going to look like? And it can last years. I know friends whose parents live with them now. And it's kind of a big deal. I think a lot of people don't realize that it is a huge responsibility, and then especially if and when, and most likely, that person's health will start to decline over time. And so a lot of the appointments, a lot of the care that may need to be brought in will fall on you. So having as many resources as you can, contacts of people who can help make good recommendations about things, and also avoiding burnout. I mean, I cannot tell you. I've got videos on it, caregiver burnout, because, I couldn't say no. I knew that I needed to see her. I knew I needed to check on her, and I didn't want to, I needed to make sure that she was okay. She could not advocate for herself. She couldn't even tell me if she had gotten hurt or if she fell or if somebody did something. So I really felt it was my place to make sure that I was staying on top of it. And there were times when I was like, I felt bad that I wasn't able to go up there and see her, but I really trusted the place that we moved her into, because I knew a lot of people there. They knew that I was really involved. And I mentioned in many of my videos that I would pop in unannounced at various times, at different times of the day. They would think, oh, she comes maybe in the mornings. No, switch it up, come in the evenings. I want to meet the A team, the B team, and the C team working, who they are, knowing that I will be popping in and making sure that, my mom is getting the best level of care that she can. There's turnover. There's a lot of turnover at these places, but, the more you're involved, the more you're going to be able to help support that person. One of the things I'm going to suggest is that you prioritize your self-care. I couldn't because there was no time for me. There wasn't any time for me until like right now. It took 18 years for me to really start to find the time that I've needed. And really, I've sort of been crafting it over the last several years, but my health matters, and it was neglected for a very long time. And during the most challenging times of my life, my body reacts like with full body rash, with all kinds of different things. So I knew that the stress of managing her, the stress of everything in my life that was going on, and then trying to be a really good mom, it just made a dent in my happiness and in my health. So anyway, keeping your own medical appointments, doing any hobbies, or maintaining and keeping your social connections, super important. Yeah, I started a book club because I knew that it was really hard to get together with everybody. So I thought, okay, once a month, we'll all take turns hosting. So that was really the only way that I was able to maintain that. and try to exercise and do some of the things, which of course I had to incorporate my children in it. So we would just, do long walks and things like that. But also taking guilt-free breaks, like just going on vacation was so nice because I didn't have to worry. My brother would call and check, he would talk with the nursing station or do whatever. But just taking time for yourself, it is not selfish. It is absolutely essential. So once you start to realize that, okay, now this is our new norm, getting organized is going to be important, especially if you're going to start managing that person's finances. A lot of people, it's challenging for people. There's actually agencies out there that I have referred over the years that can help people stay compliant with their taxes, make sure that they're gathering all of the documentation for them to have their bills paid every single month. You know, a lot of seniors still write checks. They wait for their invoice to come. They write their check out, a few days before it's due. They put a stamp on it. But what I did was, well, I had to keep that house up and running with the utilities until it was sold, but I just set up everything electronically. I attached it to the checking account. I made sure that everything was paid on time, so I did not have to worry about that. And then I made it, really, it was really important that her finances and her documents were all stored properly. Like I didn't have medical records, but I had access to them. Her power of attorney, her will, her estate paperwork and things like that, her trusts, anything that she had built at that time, her insurances. So I had copies of everything. I had all of her identification. You never want to have any of that information with them in a dementia unit. So of course I had all of it here with me. And there wasn't anybody else to ask for help, like when it says share the load, but to ask for help involving siblings, relatives, friends, or hire professionals. Because my brother lived so far away, it was really me, but I did have some help. I would get my in-laws at that time sometimes would help drop her off. So if there was ever an event, holidays, we did all kinds of things over the holidays. So I would go and pick her up. She'd spend the day with us, and then they would drive almost right past there. So they would drop her off, make sure she got in safely. So that was about the only time I could really ask for other people to help me. But I definitely used support services. There were services that came in on the campus, and, she had a fall at one point and fractured her pelvis. So there was certain things that she needed, which involved the on-campus home health services. There's a doctor that was coming in. So, you're going to be expected to need to visit specialists. Now, if your loved one is home by themselves, there are services like adult day programs, which are wonderful. Not only can they socialize and make friends, they can have fun. These programs, if your loved one qualifies, look up and find in their area if there are any adult day programs. And if your loved one needs medical attention, like medication management, or they have a condition like, say, diabetes that needs to be tested throughout the day, maybe an adult day medical program would be suitable. They get transportation provided. They get picked up. There's respite care services, home health services that can come in. You can get it if their primary care doctor deems that they're homebound, which happens for a lot of people. It is a very taxing effort for them to get out of the home and manage going to and from grocery store, visits, church, anything like that. They would qualify for home health under their Medicare, meaning PT, OT, wound care, nursing care, social work. There's a lot of things that are included under the Medicare services that people aren't aware of. And also senior centers. I mean, if they're still driving, my grandmother drove till she was 92. And then she saw somebody back up and bang into the apartment building, and she stopped driving. She was like, ooh, she's 10 years younger than me. She was something else, my grandmother. She lived to be 97. She's a doll. Anyway, sharing the load would be ideal, especially, and I see a lot of families where there's a bunch of different people. My girlfriend right now, one of my neighbor friends, her mom, they had to place in a dementia unit. So they're taking turns. A couple of days a week she goes, a couple of days a week her sister goes, and then their dad goes. So there's always someone visiting and checking on her and whatnot. But managing expectations. Now, if both your parents are living and you're seeing their decline, I met a lady not long ago. She told me her parents are so resistant. She said, I can barely bring them food like a homemade dish. She said they're so resistant. And I said, well, there's always a window. When someone goes into the hospital or they have to go to rehab, there's a window that things can change on a dime with when there's two people, especially, if one is not well and the other one is, sort of managing the whole thing. But of course they're going to resist change. They don't want to move out of their house. They've been living there maybe 50 years, 60 years, longer. So it's going to be a big change for everybody, but being patient, respectful, and just kind of quietly being persistent. Now, with my situation, my grandmother fell in January and had to have surgery. And over the course of 10 days, she did not come out of that. The surgeon told me at her age, many times people do not come out of this anesthesia. And so by day 5, I was the one that was there kind of overseeing the process and wondering, what are we going to do here? So that's when I called my mother's brothers and I said, you guys need to probably get here. But over that 10 days that I was there, planning my grandmother's funeral, organizing things, getting her moved out of her assisted living, I knew my mother could not stay home. I knew it. I knew it like I knew it. And it wasn't long after that. By May, she was moved. So she was there February, March, and April. And of course, I was calling daily, having neighbors check on her, having her limit her driving, which it was winter in Syracuse anyway, but still. I didn't want to set these unrealistic standards for myself because this was the first time I ever had to do something like this. So I wanted to be patient, but I wanted to be respectful because she was my mom and she was the one that was always helping me. And now it was like this imperceptible shift that took place where I was the one that was now helping make decisions. I was the one that now knew what was going to be best for her. And, I realized, wow, I'm right in the mix. I was right in the mix with all of it. And so it is what it is. I'm just happy that I was able to help her and bring her to live with us. And then together we looked for assisted living. It was fun. We just had the best time. And it took 8 months for her to get in because there was a very long wait list. So we took a couple months. She loved going to Sunday brunch at these places. And so it was sort of like an outing. We would go, I'd leave the kids home. Sometimes I'd bring them if it was during a week. But anyway, it all worked out. And it will for you too. This is what I would always tell my families, the families that I worked with in senior care when I had to advise them. There's always a solution. There's always a solution. It may not be exactly what you want, but especially if you have the resources to be able to help. A lot of people will consider moving their loved ones closer to them and having them downsize from, a very potentially challenging home, depending on the layout of the home, especially if it's split level or if it's hard for them to navigate and they're frail or they starting to fall. And they're still driving and they shouldn't be. I mean, it's going to mandate and dictate what are their abilities, how well are they doing with it, and are they managing it well, and what is the liability? Because I always worried that if my mother crashed into a family in a minivan and somebody were to be seriously injured or killed, there'd be no doubt that she would have lost everything. So to me, I didn't ever want to take that chance to have her hurt anybody. Or herself. So what you're going to learn though is just by staying informed is that you're going to understand their medical conditions, any cognitive decline that they might have. Mine was very clear. And what mobility issues so that you can help them make better decisions. A lot of times it takes them a while to even want to use a device. Everybody thinks if they got to use a cane or a rollator or a walker. The thing is that the options are that you continue to fall or you learn how to continue to stay healthy and use the device if you need to. And of course, I think sitting home all day long, there's something to belonging to a senior center or going to a gym. The people that I see at the gym, oh my God, some of them are close to 100 years old. They're like, and I always ask them, were you in the military? Because those are the guys that are still they're still lifting weights. I mean, that's that mental attitude and aptitude that they have ingrained in them from the time that they served. That it's just it's really an amazing thing to see. And then planning ahead, so staying informed and learning about aging and what to expect with medical conditions and how you may be asked to step in and help. But thinking long term about like, what does housing look like? If you were to move your folks closer, what does that look like? Some parents will put an addition on to a home. I saw somebody who did $100,000 build out. They built this beautiful in-law suite. It had its own little kitchen. It did have an entrance to the family's kitchen and into the main part of the house, but they had their own separate entrance. It was all controlled separately with, oh my God, it was so beautiful. It was the cutest little spot, and they made it so, and they decorated it beautifully. It was just so nice. It really was. They also had an outdoor patio. But anyway, thinking longer term and what that looks like, especially as they're going to age, and if they are far away, wanting to have them closer, especially during end of life care, making sure that they're financially sustainable as far as like having enough to cover them until they're dead. A lot of these thoughts you don't even really think about while someone's still living, but a lot of these conversations, if you can have talks about them, you really want to know, do they have long-term care insurance? Do they have a life insurance policy that needs to be paid every month? Is it done automatically, or are they still writing checks for it? Yeah. So, and then as far as the relationship, I got closer to my mother. I was most of my life, my dad was my coach. He was just, I was closer to him for some reason. My mom was really busy a lot, and she had gone back to work after we were still in school. And she was managing 3 kids and then going to work at a school system. And, but I was really close to my dad. And then my dad died young. He was 54. And my relationship, of course, shifted and kind of went into me being really close to my mom. We lived together for a bit. I moved back into her house. Something kept telling me, go home, go home. And I went home, and my dad died within a year. So I'm really glad I had that time with her. We had a blast. She came and saw me when I lived in Charlotte, and I took her to Charleston, and we just did some really fun. We had a lot of fun moments. And when I had my twins, she couldn't have been happier. She was over the moon, and she helped me a lot, even though she was struggling with dementia. She was like my little helper. So I did try to preserve moments of joy and humor and affection. I always gave her a hug. I always held her hand when we were walking or sitting together. And yeah, when I think about her, see, I get emotional just thinking about her because I loved her. She was such a good person. She was very generous. She was just, when I tell you how many donations she made when her mail started coming to my home, she was just super generous person and just very loving. And she volunteered a lot. She just helped a lot of people. And she had a really, really close, tight group of friends. And I still reach out to some of them. I'm friends with them on Facebook and the ones that are still here with us. So anyway, I'm still there. I was still her child, and you're still going to be your parents' child. And you're not really managing them. You're really just helping. You're extending that act of love that they gave you as you were growing up. Especially if you had a good relationship with your parents. To me, it was second nature, really. But anyway, I felt really honored to be able to do it. And it did deepen I felt at the very end, I'd done everything I could to keep her safe and comfortable and help her manage, what she needed to as she went through that journey of dementia. And I'm glad that I could be there for her. So this role reversal, these final thoughts are just that this role reversal, it can be a lot. It can be painful, watching your loved one decline over time. And it can be complex and everything, but just having this opportunity to show this deep love and this humanity to your parent or your parents, you're going to just know that you did everything that you could, and you won't always feel like you're in control or that you have all the answers, but neither did they when they were raising you, right? They didn't have all the answers. You knew that they tried I have some great memories of my parents. But anyway, with the support and compassion, you could find some strength and deep meaning too. I really did feel that it was a beautiful journey with her. It was a long one, but to me, I felt like I I felt honored that I was able to be there for her. So I hope that you do too. And I hope that if you're going through this right now, learning and understanding, check out my other videos because there is a lot of helpful information because I've sort of gone there before you. So I do have a lot of, knowledge, not only from the personal experiences, but also in my professional life as a senior care advisor. So I wish you all the best and thank you for coming and seeing the content today. And if you want to like and subscribe, and even if you want to comment, I'm happy to hear from you. And tell me where you're from too. Tell me where you grew up. All right? I'll see you at the next video. Take care.